Hello friends, I'm Stephan Dyer and I'm recording my first ever English comedy special live from Toronto on February 24. Get your tickets now at stephandyer.com.
Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast, my people.
Hello my people, ¿cómo están, damas y caballeros? Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast, where I welcome people with remarkable stories for amazingly vulnerable conversations. I am right now in Costa Rica at my brother's house recording this. I am Stephan Dyer, former banker turned comedian and lifestyle entrepreneur, and today we have an incredible guest, Graeme Barlow. But before we dive in, let me share a quick personal story about the lowest point in my career. It's late 2017. I just quit my bank job in Toronto, and to be honest, was struggling with comedy. On the other hand, I just proposed to my girlfriend, now wife, and we decided to buy an apartment just because, hey, we're spending the rest of our lives together. And I head to my old bank, Scotiabank, for a mortgage pre-approval, despite having the down payment and ability to pay or application for a modest $350,000. Mind you, this is practically peanuts for Toronto. It gets instantly rejected. I was crushed. We were crushed. It was our dream. The fact that I did not have an employment letter and that my wife was not a permanent resident at the time made our case too complicated. And that is when we met Joe Purewall, mortgage agent, our podcast sponsor. He came into our life and saved us. We did not know there were other ways to buy a home in Ontario other than the five big banks. There's other banks that do that too. Joe explained the process super simple. Now, not only did we buy our first apartment, but we later sold it to buy a bigger one when my son Liam was born in 2020. The best part is Joe's team speaks Spanish. So if you're a newcomer, Latino, dreaming of having your own home, call or WhatsApp Joe at plus 905 330 6090. We all have complicated situations, and with Joe, you can ask all those tricky questions without the fear of judgment. He will offer you the best rates in Ontario and solutions for our unique journeys. That's Joe Purewall at plus 905 330 6090. Or if it's easier, just look at the show notes and it's all there. And now let's talk about our incredible guest. Graeme Barlow is a visionary entrepreneur and business coach. With an illustrious career spanning over 24 years, Graeme has founded 4 companies with 2 successful exits. That's insane. We discuss starting with computers as a kid, selling on eBay before the age of 15, insights from startups, shaping company culture, the effects of a compressed work week, forming online bonds. Is it possible or is it not possible? Working remotely, what keeps a CEO up at night, how to recharge batteries, empowering immigrants, and how to avoid becoming numb amidst success. And now, enjoy Graeme Barlow in 3, 2, 1. Go. Welcome to the unbreakable, the unmistakable, the highly capable, the invincible, my good friend, Graeme Barlow. How are you doing, buddy?
Thank you, sir. So good to be here. It's nice to see you. It's been a little while since you were here.
Yes, I want to give you a public huge thank you because you hosted us in Ottawa and we were on the way to Quebec. We stayed at your place. Liam could not have been happier ever at you have the best place, and the fact that your wife and yourself and your daughter are a fan of dinosaurs, it would just made Liam's life. So thank you for hosting us.
He was an amazing guest. You all were. I don't think I've ever met someone that young with that much vocabulary for dinosaurs. I could not keep up. It was amazing.
Yeah, we were just I cannot, because you know what? When we were corresponding before, the email and the messages, I thought I had sent an email about what Liam was a little bit about. You told me about the dogs and everything, and Liam loves dogs. And I thought I had mentioned the dinosaurs, but then I went back and looked at my emails, and I didn't send that one. And it just happened to be like a match made in heaven. That
was awesome.
That you had so many dinosaurs, and that you had like the playing area for your daughter that Liam enjoyed so much. So thank you so much, man.
Oh, my pleasure. It was awesome having you guys.
It was a fantastic meetup because we had already met each other through Dan Martel and Hannah, and we obviously got to meet each other in person this time around in Ottawa. And because we were there, we stayed over. We had the chance to have these conversations that you don't typically have on a short 15-minute or 30-minute that we had on Zoom.
Yeah.
And obviously by the intro that everybody already heard, you have a wonderful career, and you've had several exits. You're a incredible speaker, advisor, coach. But I want to dig deep into how this all started, because you told me the story and I felt like a child during story time. When did you start becoming friends with computers, and where did you grow up? Were your parents a big influence, and how did this all come together?
Yeah, that's kind of a fun journey. So I was very, very fortunate. I grew up just outside of Toronto in a city called Pickering, very famous for the nuclear power plant and not a whole lot else. And was extremely, extremely fortunate that very early on, my mom was very entrepreneurial and had, I think, the good fortune of kind of timing and interest in technology that ended up being one of the first Apple distributors in Canada in kind of the late 80s, early 90s. And so we grew up with Apple computers in every room in the house pretty much, because they were all demo units for one client or another, which was pretty cool. Pretty frustrating as a kid, though, because everyone else was like on Windows and had cool things, and I had like math games, because nothing else really ran on Apple at the time. But it was a lot of that kind of early exposure just to the internet and being around technology that kind of cemented a pretty good path to spending an unreasonable amount of time online and playing games online. The first number of kind of browser-based games, and then eventually like Windows games that ran on a Mac, like Diablo 1, really kind of captured my life, for better or worse, consuming most of my time, which kind of led to a lot of discussion around like, are video games worth the time? And a lot of discussion and friction with my parents on whether or not that was a good investment of time. And kind of fortunately, at the same time that discussion was happening, my dad had started experimenting on eBay and selling different things on eBay and was seeing a lot of success there.
What year was this?
This would have been probably 98, 99, 2000s.
I love it.
Yeah. So I started paying more attention in 2000 and managed to find out that some of the items in the games that I was playing were actually worth a fair bit on eBay, because it took an obscene amount of hours and playtime and everything to get them. But 10-year-old me was kind of like, you wanted value in video games. I have stuff that's valuable. And yeah, that was kind of the first maybe light bulb moment of there's this online economy that nobody really knows anything about. I mean, it was not saying things like online economy at 10, but I was like, oh, I could sell a bow for $100. That's cool.
And the bow was from games like, I have no idea what Diablo 1 is.
Yeah,
but
Diablo is a game where you play a character, you go out in the wild, and you kill a bunch of monsters, and they have a really, really low chance of dropping cool stuff. Diablo 2 took that to a whole other level, where there's these kind of infinite grind lottery systems and trying to find rare stuff. And if you get really lucky and find rare stuff, it can be really, really valuable.
So let me understand it. You were 10, 12 at the time, and you and your friends that you have made online, because at around the year 2000, you can now play video games and talk to other people and communicate in real time. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so basically, you are becoming very good at this game because you've been putting the hours. So have your friends who are not your real life neighbors, but they're all over, like just in other cities and countries. And you identify, because you've been familiarized with eBay through your dad, that you can own these digital assets like bows, for example, and then put them on eBay, and somebody else across the country or continent can buy them and pay you $100. And at the time, you're 10. So how do you overcome you need to be 18 to have a bank account and a credit card to access eBay. And your friends are probably not 35 or 40 either. They're probably around your age. How do you jump over that hurdle?
Creatively, yeah, that was one of the big challenges when we got into this, is nobody really wanted to give us, rightfully so, credit cards or information to go have kind of infinite reign on the internet. So I'm in a very innocent, but looking back on it, terrifying kind of approach to solving just whatever problem is in front of me. We built really crappy websites that promised all kinds of weird stuff in different games, and had people submitting information that we would use to run eBay accounts for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it was like the weirdest, dumbest setup, but worked out that we were able to kind of keep doing transactions on eBay and on PayPal while we were really young, and never did anything malicious with it, but didn't know any other way around it. Nowadays, there's like a thousand ways to solve the problem. But back then, it was just kind of like, okay, well, how do we solve this thing? We need PayPal accounts, and nobody will give them to us. Eventually, we got to the point where we had enough people in our kind of network and ecosystem that we had people we could partner up with. But it literally started with like running scamming game sites so that we could set up PayPal accounts so that people could pay us, so that we could use PayPal money to buy things in other games. And just keep doing that, which was, completely illegal and illicit. But literally on the internet at the time, like, nobody was figuring this stuff out. It was and we were all kids. We had no real concept that this was actually problematic. So, yeah.
It sounds like it was the wild, wild west back in the time. Nobody really knew a lot about it, but you were at the forefront of it. So tell me about you. So you sold a bow for $100, for example, and then you and your friends are like, okay, so this could be profitable, but we don't have enough time in the day with us having to go to school, and our parents over like watching over our backs like all the time. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you built a bot that could play to mine these wonderful assets to make more money, and made more money, but at the same time, because of your age, had some trouble monetizing it in the real life?
Yeah. So we hit a point where it was like, well, selling everything we find is cool, but now we don't have any cool stuff. So that's not kind of the point of playing games. And so we'd like, bot is probably a overreach in terms of what modern bots can do, but we built like really basic kind of clicking scripts that could do like basic runs of like, go kill these things, loot everything, and then we would spend time every day kind of sorting through whatever it had looted. There wasn't a whole lot of intelligence to it. Neopets was another like big market at the time, and we had these little refresh bots that would kind of buy very specific things from the stores and Neopets when they refreshed, and then sell those or sell Neopoints. And eventually, like a couple of years into this, we had really, really, really basic bots just farming gold in World of Warcraft in like the least sophisticated way possible. It was not optimized. It was just like literally park a character here and go kill mobs all day, every day, and just loot the stuff, vendor everything, and sell the gold. And that did really well, like really, really well, scaling up and learning how to do it and run in multiple instances on a computer, get access to more computers. And so, yeah, that was kind of our foray into how to expand digital business. And like there were some groups doing it at a much bigger scale than we were. Like we very quickly, kind of due to all the logistics reasons of not being allowed to actually have PayPal accounts, moved off of eBay and started selling just directly wholesale to some of the other big sellers in the marketplace. And it was a pretty wild ride.
Did your parents ever find out, or were you like ever like, oh, well, this was a waste of time, we'll check this out, like I have $10,000 in my account right now, or did your parents help you cash it out? Because I think you mentioned one time that you were like internet rich, but you couldn't really.
Yeah, well, and that was the kind of the weird and stupid thing about it, is like, because it was all set up on these like fake PayPal accounts, there was no legitimate way to move money back into our own names or into our own accounts in Canada easily. And so a lot of it, we literally just, kind of enjoyed being super rich in video games online, because we were selling all kinds of stuff, but then we could buy the best stuff or buy access to the best groups or whatever. And so, kind of got to just be like little mini millionaires on the internet, and not a ton of access to like real world options for it. So my parents were aware that I did a ton of stuff online. Like I spent an obscene amount of hours online. I think looking back at it, like my World of Warcraft account from that time period in my life has something like 400 or 500 days played on it. So just like I lived online.
What? That's like...
For better or worse, it tracks real time you spend in the game, and you can like type /played, and it tells you just how little sun you've seen in the past decade. And
so you racked up your 10,000 Malcolm Gladwell hours by the time you were 15, pretty much.
By the time I was 17, I think I had Malcolm lapped in about 3 different online universes. Which is funny though. Like I think we had a bit of this chat when you were here. Yes. So much of what I know today about managing currency and economies and supply and demand and marketing all comes from like living in Diablo 2 and World of Warcraft and living on these sites that support it and like spamming threads to try and sell our stuff or find the right people, or knowing an expansion is coming out, so we buy out everything of one resource on every server we have money on, and then selling it when it's inflated when the next thing comes out. Like all of that came from an obscene amount of time in games and just being in the currency side of that. It wasn't an MBA. It wasn't a business degree. It was kind of lived in that. And I have so much fun trying to explain that to some people that like, yes, you can just waste an obscene amount of time in video games. You can also learn an insane amount, because they are these completely real, completely human communities where you get to kind of do things you could never do in real life, from like manipulating markets to starting from nothing and seeing how fast you can build yourself up, to, especially in the games that involve like trading and selling, a lot of it is a human connection. I remember as I was just getting into this, I had the like weirdest friendship connection thing through a website called TeachHSP, and I met this guy probably, I don't know, twice my age at the time, but in Montreal, and he was selling high runes in Diablo 2, but he had some guy he knew that was like duplicating them, and that was way faster than us finding them. And I cut a deal with him that was like, all right, I get 20% of everything I sell. And he would give me these wholesale shipments at the beginning of the month. And we would like tack them onto all of our other sales and purchases of items we were selling. And I was just like selling tens of thousands of high runes at the time through these accounts as like this little middleman dealer thing for duplicated high runes, along with all of our bot found items. It was a weird time on the internet, but it was fun.
Oh my God, that is so remarkable. Do you still talk to your original friends at the beginning, or do you still have friends that you met in your teens that you've made business with in the previous 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, like I'm still in touch with a lot of them. It's amazing how many of that kind of cohort and group ended up doing all kinds of crazy stuff in esports or out in the world. We have a fun story from our wedding. The best man at my wedding, I met playing World of Warcraft when I was 15, and got married at 30. And I think in those 15 years, we had seen each other in real life 3 times.
No.
But I think I had spent more time with him online than like any other human being in my life, in terms of like one-to-one time. So, yeah, it's kind of funny. And I mean, like a lot of this has also come out in the pandemic time, and then like when companies went remote, and whether or not you can actually build teams online, and can you foster culture. And it's like, I have literally been doing this since 2000, when this stuff was like on the most antiquated, crappy tech on the planet. With the stuff we've got today, coordinating and scaling virtual teams is absolutely viable and works so well when you do it, when you invest in it and lean into it. Because like you can overcome insane challenges and really complex problems together online, if it's a kind of core philosophy for you.
Oof, I love that so much. So let's lean into that a little bit. So I went to Peru to see my mom in January, and my mom's partner, who she's been with for like the last 15 years, is a very accomplished, not artificial intelligence, intellectual property lawyer. And he's won like a bunch of awards and everything. And his daughter is my age. And they were having a discussion in the living room, like over dinner, about whether or not you can build and create meaningful relationships through virtual teams versus the real world. Because he's been a lawyer for the past 45 years in person. And after the pandemic, they transitioned to, you don't have to go to work in person anymore for like 2 or 3 days a week. And she was like, I have great friends online that work in the Madrid office, and I'm in the Peru office. And then and he was like, no, but it's not the same as in person because blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, no, yeah, you can do this. And I guess they kind of like agreed to disagree. Like, well, you're from another generation. I'm from this generation. What ways and tools and frequency of meetings or other insights can you share about building these meaningful relationships, work and personal, obviously? Like, not everybody has the benefit of having hundreds of hours with an amazing friend that you build, but it would be amazing to do so. But what about having just building a little bit of real estate in each other's hearts on a weekly basis? What kind of traditions, insights can you share about your own company culture?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's a phenomenal debate too, because I don't think the answer is one or the other, right? I think there's a ton of merit on both sides. I definitely think for a lot of people, it is easier and faster to build deep relationships in person. But I think the same can be accomplished online. What a lot of it comes down to, in my perspective, is creating shared experiences. The benefit of being online, like offline, is you're both together in the same environment at the same time, and you can kind of see each other's reactions. And whether you go out to food or go to an event together, there's kind of an inherent ability to share all of that. You have to try and recreate elements of that online if you're going to expect the same results. I think it's why people form such phenomenally close virtual relationships through gaming, relative to, say, working together on teams on some corporate assignment. Like when you have kind of shared adversity, a shared challenge in front of you, and you have to work together and you overcome it, that creates a lot of the same chemistry and bonding as you would see in person. Now, how we recreate that at Iris, often through what we've been doing, has been trying to create a lot of opportunities for people to have shared experiences, whether that is kind of random coffee chats. So you give people time and space to be able to connect through video calls and just chat about life experiences or chat about what's going on, or creating kind of special interest groups within the company where we're connected. Like we have a big 3D printing community. We have a big gaming community where people are often jumping on video calls or chatting and sharing different resources and ideas back and forth and creating together. I think all of that kind of goes a really long way to helping form meaningful connections. Like I think anyone that's built a large organization, you can't create those like best friend bonds between every single person in your entire company all at once. Like all 50 or 100 people are not going to be instantly best friends with each other. It's more about helping each person make meaningful connections within their team and uniting people through a common core set of beliefs. I think that's one of the things for me that has shifted dramatically from when we were in office to virtual. Is I used to associate a lot of the pizza days or taking people out for lunch or special events with like, that is culture. That is how we build culture in a company. And what I've learned since going remote is culture, at least to the point that people value it and talk about it and tell friends and colleagues and new recruits about it, is way more about unifying set of values. It's about if we say in our value statement that transparency and is critical and always have hard conversations, and actually living that day to day, actually having the all hands where you go into the good and the bad and otherwise, actually having open door policies where good ideas can come from anywhere and you can have organizational change happen from a suggestion from a co-op or a junior employee versus everything being kind of top down led. That's what builds culture. That's what makes people actually talk about there being culture they're excited about. You can have all the parties and perks in the world. If that core set of values isn't there, you don't have actual culture. Well, there's always culture. You don't have a good culture. You don't have a culture people are excited about. And what we've seen is that bond through sharing those values, through supporting each other, through being champions of it, is what really helps create great relationships. And we've heard now tons of anecdotes of people traveling across the country and meeting up with different colleagues and connecting in real life because they've become so close online over the years working together. So long answer for you, but
no, I love it. And sometimes if you don't have a strong culture and you don't live your core values or your core beliefs, then those pizza parties are just Band-Aids. Yeah. And people can see through it immediately. I really love when you shared about what you implemented in your company, that you don't micromanage people and check if they're from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. What did you implement and how has it worked out?
Yeah, I think that's another big one that if I look back at kind of our remote policies, I almost shake my head a little bit about how we approached a lot of that. We came from an in-office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, fairly straightforward culture from that standpoint. I mean, we were really flexible that you could start at 7 if you wanted and like go to 3. Yes. And with written manager approval, you could work from home once a month. To today, we've moved to a policy where we run on a compressed work week with flex hours. So what that means is our core business hours run Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern. That's the time period that we expect anyone in the company to be available to be booked for meetings, for client-facing events, for whatever. Outside of those core hours, how people fill out the rest of their hours is completely up to them. We have lots of people that run a traditional 9 to 5 Monday to Friday schedule, but we have almost an equal number of people that do 4 10-hour days and don't work on Fridays. And our philosophy there has been, as long as you're getting the kind of time in and as long as the output matches the velocity we're expecting on all of our teams, how and when the work gets done is really not a concern for us. And what we saw early on is like so much cool feedback from staff and new recruits that like it gave them the flexibility to work with their families, to have time with their kids, to accommodate errands or soccer or school drop off or school pickup. They're like, I can take the time that matters to me, and work fits within kind of their family schedule. And that's a way better approach than arbitrarily saying like work has to happen between 9 and 5, because a lot of our work can be reasonably asynchronous. It's all online. So work when you're most productive, work when it makes the most sense for your family. And yeah, we've seen kind of incredible results from that, which has been amazing. We've been very, very fortunate.
Do you think that improves employee retention?
Absolutely. Like we have seen the best retention we've ever had in the last number of years. And when the entire world was talking about a shortage of talent in the tech ecosystem, we were filling every position we had open in record time because we were able to go to any person working in any of the big organizations with the talent we wanted and say, hey, how would you like to make a shift, make the same money you're making now, but have complete control over your schedule and freedom? It's amazing how often that pitch works.
I love it.
Not to mention what you touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but like what I never fully understand is when you have companies that attract and retain high caliber talent, and we like to think we have very high caliber talent, why you would take senior people, pay them a lot of money, and then spend a whole bunch of money trying to micromanage or like over monitor everything they're doing. You've hired smart people. They're in the right role. If you have the right systems in your company to monitor project progress and output, leave them alone. Like hire great people and get out of the way. Like give them the opportunity to be successful. And we've benefited a lot from being able to give people that kind of freedom in terms of the caliber of talent we can attract. It's been amazing.
I know this is a question for you, but also for Steph, who is a wonderful person and very experienced in HR, talent acquisition, diversity, inclusion, equity, everything. Do you have a particular way of recruiting, a favorite question in interviews? I've listened to a lot of podcasts and obviously Dan Martell, Tim Ferriss, and they talk a lot about when they're about to do deals, and this is obviously hiring, but when they're about to do deals and even exits and investments, they talk about the back channel, talking to other people. Do you know this person? What do you think about that? What's your take on hiring? Because when you do hire high caliber people, the stakes are high. The cost of hiring, then letting them go and hiring again is huge. It's not just the opportunity cost and the cost of hiring, but also the time that they're not in the role and and then your time trying to hire more people. Do you have any favorite questions, ways of doing it? Or have you heard of Steph say something? I know we should probably have Steph here, but what's your take on hiring?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because as you said, it is so foundational to kind of preserving the organization. I think in terms of specific questions, I don't have one thing that fits every situation. A lot of the time, my involvement tends to be on our senior hires. Like as you said, Steph has a phenomenal team. She's our chief people officer. She and her recruiting team have done an amazing job sourcing incredible people. A lot of the time, if I'm involved and there's conversations, most of my questions are around why people do things. And a lot of that is because in senior roles, having the technical capabilities to do the execution is a minor part of the job, right? There's a million candidates that can probably check the box that have the experience, the why they show up, why they do what they do, or why they're choosing to do it with your company or in the field that they've chosen, to me is the really interesting part. And it's not always something you can learn in one conversation. It's more about meeting a couple times, seeing the underlying philosophy behind some of the answers, and also looking at their career history of like, why have they made moves when they have, what kind of companies do they work with? The back channeling side of it is extremely important. What do their peers say? What do former business partners say about them? And I'm looking for people that are curious. Like, at the end of the day, in tech, I think curiosity and the ability to learn and kind of consume information and turn it into actionable steps and processes is one of the most fundamental, important attributes for leadership. Because, I mean, AI has been a great example recently. The AI landscape is changing weekly. If you aren't at least a little bit curious and excited about following that, there is no world where you're going to stay on top of what's relevant to know, what's noise, and what is useful to action with your team. And I think finding people that have that filter is very important, because there's lots of people out there that just want to learn everything and action everything. And that's actually not helpful either, because if you're just constantly pivoting for your team because there's a new shiny thing each week, everyone's going to go crazy and nothing's going to get done. You need the people that are kind of curious, staying on top of it, but are also able to filter through and go, okay, that's a meaningful shift. Let's pull everyone together, make sure they know what's going on here, how we use it, and roll it out. And then a month or two of like, yeah, there's a lot of noise, nothing we need to like change the world about. So finding people that have that curiosity and have demonstrated that curiosity, like, I think that's why it's so important to look at a little bit of work history and a little bit of kind of background. It's less reference checks and more just track record of actions. Because people can sit in an interview and tell you, I'm super curious, I love new things. And then you look back and it's like, well, you spent 10 years kind of doing the same thing and there's not a whole lot of innovation there. You don't seem to get very like antsy with trying new stuff. Are you really going to be the person that's helping push forward new initiatives and new technologies? So that's a lot of what I look for. And same thing when I look at founders and companies is the kind of why are they building? Yeah. After
so much experience in this space and building companies and having exits, what is the thing that you're excited about today in this role as CEO, and what keeps you up at night?
Ooh, I like it. I'm excited because we get to work with some of the best people I've ever worked with in my life. And we are lucky enough, because of the clients we have and the work we're doing, that we're getting to play with the cutting edge of technology. We get to kind of, rather than being in a product world where we pick one and kind of go all in on that piece of emerging tech, we're getting to play in cutting edge AR and mixed reality. We're playing in 5G navigation. We're playing in the bleeding edge of healthcare tech and so many other cool things. And we have teams doing all of it. And every point along that process is exposure into the market. It's an opportunity to see what kind of companies are up and coming, to play with the actual execution of the tech, so you can kind of get below the surface of like, what is marketing hype and what is buildable and doable today in these spaces. That part's awesome. I love that. And I love the opportunity. We're very fortunate to be in a situation where, especially when we work with small companies, if we find something we're super excited about, or if we see a product we're really excited about, or even discover a competitor we're really excited about, we often get a chance to invest or participate in that side of it. So I love that part of it. And I love the fact that we've got a virtual culture and are working with people in every province across the country, and one territory. But
there you go.
What keeps me up at night is the overall economic climate right now is still weird. We're seeing it across our portfolio, regardless of size of company. We're seeing big projects get random kind of delays or suspensions in them. We've had, in the past month, we've had 2 or 3 big projects that have been running for 12 plus months let us know they're going to go on hold for 90 days while they readjust their fiscal strategy, or they're reprioritizing from kind of new tech to back office cleanup work. And it's been challenging to navigate that ecosystem when you're seeing a lot of uncertainty in the big companies. And I think that's going to continue for a little while yet. We haven't seen the kind of pure forward momentum stability come back yet.
Oof. I know that being a CEO, people from the outside, they think is very glamorous, but there's a lot. I mean, it is cool. It's cool, you know, but at the same time, there's a lot behind the curtain that a lot of people don't see. And you are responsible for it's high accountability. And yes, you're responsible for a lot of people. You get to be you get to pose in the picture if things go well. But if things don't well, you still got to be in the picture. So it's high accountability, and you got to be high integrity. Otherwise, it's not gonna go well. You got to be high energy, because otherwise you don't. You show up one day, but you then don't show up in the next 4 days, and I'm very curious because now I have a lot of, I'm very grateful through Dan Martel and this program, to meet a lot of successful people that I look up to, like you. And I'm very interested of, how do you recharge? Like it's, or maybe you don't have to, because you love what you do. But I always ask these questions to CEOs, because some people do it through sleep, some people do it through exercise, some people do it through Netflix, some people do it through meditation, or some people just do it playing with their kids. I don't know, but I think it's insightful, because I'm always trying to get more energy. A lot of people talk about productivity and time, but you also have to look at your energy and your attention. Where does it go? How do you recharge?
That's a great question. Obviously, the answer is waking up at 5 a.m. and cold plunges. No, it's as you said, it's different for everyone, right? It's I also find for myself it varies throughout the year and throughout different stages I'm at right now. As tiring as it can be, chasing a toddler around and just disconnecting and hanging out with my daughter is phenomenal. Depending on what type of work I'm involved in, because I get to, as you said, some parts of CEO world are glamorous, some parts are less so. There's times where I spend a fair bit of time in kind of financial weeds or tax paperwork, or trying to understand contracts and where we're going with different things. And so I've spent a lot of time in documents, then I recharge around people and getting to hang out with and chat with inspiring people like yourself, and so many other incredible people in my network that I've had a chance to meet and connect with. I find that's something that gives me kind of endless energy, is finding more inspiring people. If I've gone through a couple of weeks of back-to-back events and lots of people, sometimes the recharge is finding a few hours to just do gaming and not talk to anyone and kind of disconnect from the world. So it really depends on where I've been kind of spending the energy and what I need to try and balance for myself. I laugh a little bit when people try and ask you, like, are you an extrovert or an introvert? I'm like, I am both. It depends on the day. I can pull crazy energy from people and be super motivated with that. I can also hide in my basement for 3 days and play video games. Like, both of these are a good thing for me. What I generally like to find is a little bit of balance and exposure to both. But honestly, the biggest thing is surrounding myself with other inspiring people, because that's not only what helps recharge you, but it's also what helps you find interesting and creative solutions to problems you're facing. Like, I think I've gained more aha moments and insight from just trying to fill a room with a bunch of really smart people and see where conversation goes than any amount of kind of reading or chasing answers to one specific problem. Like, a lot of it is just connect with smart people and talk to them.
Oof, I love it. This is a question that wasn't even part of the questions that I wrote, but as we talk, I just came up with something that I want to ask you about. So, as you know, a lot of the listening, the people who listen to this podcast are newcomers, are immigrants. And to me, it's been fascinating, just fascinating to meet people like you and Dan and a lot of people, Reese and Michelle Falcon, that I want you to meet. He's a good friend. He's a restaurant.
Oh, cool.
He has Brasa Peruvian here in Toronto. He has these 3-4 restaurants, and a lot of other people that I've met through in this startup world, high leverage, SaaS, software, gaming, founders, entrepreneur world that I've started to, that I quit my job and people were like, oh, why did you? That's so cool that you're an entrepreneur. And I was like, what is an entrepreneur? I had no idea that I was an entrepreneur now because I had quit my job or whatever. But to me, it's been fascinating to see what you've accomplished and other people have accomplished. And I'm like, man, these companies or the people that I have met, they're running companies that are like 7 figures, 8 figures. And I'm like, what? I thought I was fucking owning the world because I was like 300 grand in revenue. But
hey, I'm killing it.
But
everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah, but at the same time, I've been putting a lot of thought into this, where when I was driving back from your house to Toronto, I was like, man, I wish a lot of my Latino friends and newcomers were in these rooms having these conversations. Like the last dinner we had at your place with the pizza, I was like, wow, man, if I had this conversation like 5 years ago, I'd be balling right now. I'd be like, I'd be in another, but it's so good that I'm just so grateful that I'm in him. So my question is, I see a lot of these people in these $50,000, $40,000, $40,000 a year jobs, $50,000, but just grinding, just going above and beyond. I like my last job at the bank, I made 85,000 as a senior manager. I was 27, and I thought I was rich,
That's awesome.
plus bonus. And I thought I was, and I was like at the top of the food chain of my immigrant friends. And now I look back and I'm like, man, what a huge world is out there. And had I known about the concept of leverage, so for the people who are not like financial leverage of incurring debt, but so everybody's got to go listen to Naval's podcast about how to get rich without getting lucky. So basically, there's 4 types of leverage. So the first one is capital, but that's, you have to have permission to people to give you cap. Leverage is just a force multiplier of your efforts, and like you put input, but a force multiplier to get the output. And so there's capital, but you got to have permission. There's labor, but for people to work for you, you got to have permission for them to work for you. But the best is the permissionless type of leverage, where it could be like coding and the internet. So for me, if we put out this podcast and 2 people listen to it, it doesn't cost anything else for 10 million people to listen to it. So Airbnb has so much leverage. Uber has so much leverage because in the coding, you have like so many, it doesn't cost to have marginal, like more units. And if my Latino friends and immigrant friends knew about this, they wouldn't be cleaning floors for 10 years. You know, they would be, it takes like even more energy to do that. So you could put your energy in something else and have more leverage and have more potential. But this is the great part of being in rooms with you and other people where you can learn from each other's experiences. What's your advice, if any, to newcomers in Canada, especially the people who were potentially engineers in Venezuela and now they got to reinvent themselves here? How can they gain higher leverage opportunities, or what avenues can they pursue in those first years to have more professional and personal success?
Yeah, that's a deep and awesome question. I think I'll talk high level and then a little bit more potentially specific for newcomers. But I think one thing you touched on was like being in rooms that inspire you and having networks that inspire you is such a superpower and such a game-changing element. And like this applies at every level of entrepreneurship. Like I'm very fortunate. We've had a lot of success and we've seen a lot of great outcomes from companies. At the same time, I continue to try and surround myself with people that have achieved significantly more than we have and are at that like next level or 3 more levels beyond that. I remember a couple of months ago, I was on a group call with a few friends, and I was very excited. I was like, hey, we're going to like in the new year, we're going to launch this podcast. It's going to be like scaling to 10 million and it's going to be super cool. And everyone's going to be excited. It's how to build 8-figure agencies. And immediately one of the guys on the call was like, really? 10? Why not 100? Like it took me 6 years to get to 100. Why just 10? And I was like, damn. I thought I was on top of the world. I talked to a bunch of other people, and they're like, "That's so cool." And Larry's first bit of feedback was like, why not go bigger? If you're going to talk to people, go bigger." And I'm like, it was such a like, shit, yeah, okay. Like, there's some probably limiting philosophy that I was going into that with of like, yeah, I think this is a big deal, and this is like something we're accomplishing, and I want to tell more people about it. And I think that's true, but it's important to have those people in your life that are at the next level. And I think, and I've seen it a lot, people are not very intentional about curating their social circles.
Yeah.
If you are even in the top 50% of the successful people in your social circle, you're probably not pushing yourself or exposing yourself to the right people. And I see a lot of people that get a little bit of success in business and surround themselves with people that are less successful, and they love it. They're the ones paying for everything. They're the ones like treating everyone out. And it's like, that's fine, but there's nobody pushing them. There's no one helping explain or show what the next level looks like or how to go further. And if you're happy, if that's the life you want, there's no problem with that. But if you're looking to grow, if you're hungry, being so intentional about where you spend your time and the people and the energy you surround yourself with is everything. And I think one of the challenges I've seen, and I'm not anywhere as close to tied into the kind of new Canadian ecosystem as you are, but a lot of people create their communities based on kind of different core values or whatever, but aren't necessarily creating their community based on, I want to achieve X. I want to be entrepreneurial. And it's like, cool. Then are all the people you're hanging out with entrepreneurs? Are they all at the same stage or the next stage? Oftentimes you see the people, like you see the circle that people are surrounded with, and it kind of makes sense why they are where they are. And it's hard to get access to these people, but it's not impossible. And I think that's one of the big things that I love about what you've been doing is creating these communities for people to share information about jobs and connecting all kinds of people in the employment ecosystem with new Canadians and others that have gone through the same path. Like, I think if you're new to any country and you're new to a market or anything, being so intentional about being clear about what you're trying to achieve, who is currently there, and reaching out to them. And if you send 100 messages and say, like, hey, I want to do what you do, can I buy you coffee and learn a little bit about it? Like, that's one option. If there's anything you can do that has value, a lot of things I recommend is be the organizer, be the person that instead of just reaching out one-to-one and says, hey, I want to learn from you, which I think is a great strategy. I've built a huge network doing it. You can also be the person like, hey, I'm hosting a dinner with 10 people that are senior vice president of finance at different banks. Would you be interested in attending? And if you're trying to get to that level, pull 10 of them together and be the person that facilitates that group. Dan talks a lot about founder dinners. I hosted one here in Ottawa last week. We had Kyle Van Vuuris at it. We had a whole bunch of founders. I think there was something like $2 or $3 billion worth of companies represented at the table. It was amazing. But we got to connect founders at multiple stages in their growth, from kind of early stage to exited in public, and just had awesome conversation. And so a lot of the time, just being willing to be the person that puts themselves out there and helps connect other smart people, that's the value you're bringing. And in doing so, you're also showing yourself up in that community. So I think like that would be one of the big things I would encourage people to do. And especially for like new Canadians, is reach out even within your own communities to try and connect other successful people with each other. So often it's like, if you're in an entry level role, you try and connect with 8 other people that are also at entry level roles with yourself. And then you're all just kind of like, I don't know how to advance. It's like, yeah, because nobody at this table has actually done that. So like, go get 2 entry level people at the table and then get a whole bunch of other senior people that have moved past it and figure out how to make a value prep, figure out how to be a little bit interesting and have those conversations. Because it's those people that write the roadmap. I've been spending a lot of my time right now talking to other agency owners that have scaled from 10 million to 20 million. Why? Because we're doing that and I have no idea how to do it. But there's thousands of people out there that have done it. And I'm like, rather than just beat my face against the wall and try and figure it out, let's go talk to 100 people that have done it before and see what they wish they'd known going into it. And then when we get to 20, I'm going to go try and find everyone that's done 20 to 50 and talk to all of them. And so like, I would say the same thing applies at any level of position and in any community. Just curate the group you're in, curate where you're investing your time with people. And that's the unlock. If you can network your way through it, it's huge. And I think there's so much credit out to guys like you that are creating events. Like I look at some of the hiring and socializing events you guys have done for like engineering talent that's come in. It's phenomenal. Keep doing more of that, but also arm everyone in your community to do the same, right? You don't have the monopoly on founder dinners or connecting events or whatever. Like, I think that's people too often think, oh, someone else did it, I can't do it. I laughed a little bit because I've since we promoted the founder dinner stuff that we did last week, I've had 2 people come up and be like, I hope this, like, I'm not going to piss you off, but like, I love that idea and I'm going to do it too. Awesome. I don't own that concept. I stole the concept from Dan Martell, who got it from a whole bunch of other people who've done it over and over and over again. Like
through history. Yes.
I say this is done since the beginning of time. Just connect people. That's where it starts. Ultimately that's where all of it starts.
I think that's where some of the best things that have happened in my life come from, in the connecting people. And I love connecting people. In fact, now the traveling and performing, I did like the first 40 meetups for my not working to networking, but I don't have the time. And even sometimes now the energy, I want to be with my family. I want to be with my son, but that doesn't mean that they have to stop. So I can arm Now I have an army of 40 people, 40 Latinos host. We're going to get to 200 events pretty soon. So
that's amazing.
Since 2021, and now we're doing Monday to Thursday every single week.
That's amazing.
And we're just creating a lot of movement and I'm not even part of them, but they're so high. I always tell them, you don't have to go to to my team. The second you don't want to go to them, don't be a part of it. I want you to want to go to these events. Yeah. And a lot of people are really empowered by it. They feel like they have a sense of purpose. They feel like they're not the only ones having a rough time in their first year in Canada. They feel it's also like a therapeutic part of it where they can help, and sometimes helping feels better than getting helped. It's magical. So I feel like 100%. In fact, one of the things that I enjoyed the most about 2022 was hosting these dinners, and I didn't host much in 2023. So now, as I start to plan my next year, I'm like, I'm going to do a bunch of these because I wanted to do them like industry specific or people who were like in the software space. But now I'm like, I just got to do them, and then I can perfect it, you know? So
also, I got a question for you then.
Yeah.
You've got a big event coming up on February 24th, I believe, your first big English show.
Yeah. 2/24/24.
Are you going to be hosting a dinner before and after?
Ooh, that's
23rd and 25th. You could pull together some pretty incredible groups. Bookending that, I think.
That'd be amazing. Yeah. So on February 24th, I'm filming my first ever English comedy special. I filmed my Spanish one in 2019. I think 2025 I'll have my next Spanish one. But
amazing.
My first ever English comedy special to be uploaded everywhere on YouTube, Spotify, and all the platforms.
Amazing.
And I'm very excited because a lot of people haven't seen me perform in English as much, although I perform almost every week. But I started my career in Spanish, and that's where I've done most of my accomplishments and travels and everything and festivals. And my Latin comedy festival here is in Spanish. But I'm very excited, especially because a month ago I opened for a big Brazilian comedian called Rafi Comedy. He has like 1 million followers. He's huge in Brazil, lives in New York, performs at the Comedy Cellar. And in the green room, a guy came in and he was like, "Oh, hi, my name is Juninho. And I'm a videographer. I did Rafi's comedy special for Netflix. I've done like over 90 comedy specials in Brazil, a bunch for Netflix, Amazon, HBO. And I just moved to Canada." And I'm like, "Do mine in February." So we went to the theater.
Oh, and that's because you're in the same room and you guys talk to each other.
I'm like, I told him, dude, I told him, I manifested this. I've been wanting somebody who knows about this. And guess what? Now I'm here. And it all came back from just being intentional with my messaging. Because if I had to backtrack from that, how did I get in the room with Rafi? I messaged him back in like September or June, when I knew he was going to come to Toronto about opening. He didn't see my message, but I didn't follow up. Then I saw another story in September, and I followed up just because after my one-on-one with Dan Martel, I was like, I need to triple down on this comedy thing. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then I messaged another friend from Just for Laughs. That's how I got to go to Just for Laughs and perform. Then I did Rafi. Then Rafi I met this guy through there. I don't even know where this is going to go, but I'm being very intentional. In fact, after the 100th episode of my podcast, which is in a couple, like maybe 5 more episodes, I'm going to fully like double down into people that have been where I want to go in the comedy world. And I feel like high performers, they have or people who have accomplished great things in life, they have like success leaves clues. And I want to soak up as much information and habits and books and courses and things that they've done so that I can go there and get to where I want to go. At the same time, I want to ask them how to, I want to ask you to, how do you think we become numb to achievement? Like when I first, I try to be very intentional about enjoying every step of the way, and I think I do. But I just finished Latin Comedy Fest. It was a massive success. We went from 2 nights to 3 nights, tripled our revenue, tripled our profit. And
That's awesome.
it doesn't even compare to the high I had last year, 2 nights, and making like $10,000 in profit after like dedicating months of hard work. I was so excited last year. And I don't know if it's like becoming numb to it, or like you're performing at such a high level that now you expect things to happen in excellence. How do you not become numb to making it to 1 million in top line revenue, 10 million, 20 million? What's your take? What have you seen in others?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because I think there is balance, right? Because part of why I like surrounding myself with people that have done more and are on that next step is to help keep staying motivated and focused on like, what is the next, how do you keep leveling up? How do you keep pushing forward? Because I think if you're not growing, if you're not pushing to that next step, you're kind of falling behind or losing a little bit as an entrepreneur. At the same time, maintaining gratitude for what you've done is huge.
Yeah.
I don't know so much that it is necessarily becoming numb to it as it is like, once you've achieved something, you've now set a higher bar for yourself. You want to go to the next level. So re-achieving the same thing or a marginal increase on the same thing shouldn't be super exciting, because then you're not going to have the internal motivation to go for the next thing.
Absolutely.
And I think where that fine line is you shouldn't be, if you're finding yourself in a place where you're miserable or like not enjoying the wins you used to have, I think that's a problem. I think reconnecting with gratitude and understanding that you are in an incredibly privileged position, and to some extent even connecting with the teams that are impacted by that, by the people's lives you can touch through the events and things that are happening, helps keep that grounded. But I also think not being so as excited the second year as you were the first year is a good thing. It means you're growing. It means your expectations for yourself are growing, and that's what pushes you to get to the next level. Like if you truly want to achieve greatness, if you truly want to be one of the best comics on the planet and have a reach that impacts millions and millions of people, you shouldn't be kind of celebrating and taking the day off because you crushed it with a little bit of growth on the festival you have. I think that's amazing. It's a building block to the next piece, and it's a building block to the next piece, and you keep pushing while being kind of grateful that each one gives you access to the next stage. So I think it's balanced, but I don't think it's a bad thing that the same or similar wins become less exciting. Like I think for us, I'm really excited for the time we get to like hit 10 million. I think that's going to be amazing. I think we're going to crush it this year. But after that, I don't want to have another 10 million year. I want to be figuring out how do we get to 20 and how we move that forward, because we'll have done it. And it's like, okay, cool. It's amazing. There's a million companies out there that would kill to have that opportunity. I think that's incredible. At the same time, I was chatting with a friend that runs a like huge construction and development company, probably a year or two ago. And we were chatting about like payroll and cash flow and just managing the stress of that. And we were getting to a like decent, well, what I saw is like a decent sized payroll where it's like, oh, it's a little nerve wracking seeing that much money go in and out and whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, no, I remember going through that. And he's like, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. Like operating today across our group of companies, I think our daily payroll commitment is about 87,000 a day before anything else, before contractors or anything else. He's like, that's something that's always in my mind. He's like, I'm excited for us to push past 100 a day. But it's something I'm aware of. I was like, okay, my problems are different, right? It's different scale. And then you look at it at like crazy scale where it's like you've got companies like Apple that are making millions of dollars like a minute every day, all day. And there's always something bigger. And so enjoy and be happy with where you're at, but know that you're never done if you're still ambitious and if you want to keep growing. And if you've got that kind of, as Dan says, if you've got that kind of greatness you want to help share and promote. And for us in the services world, like I truly believe we can bring a better model for treating humans and people in the services world, in software development, to a massive scale, and we can compete doing it, and we can compete attracting incredible talent and delivering cool projects without burning people out. Oof. I want to employ 10,000 people doing that. Like, I think that would be incredible. We have 50 today. So we got a little ways to go, but I'm excited for that. And I think to some extent, there's an element of like irresponsibility. If you truly believe that what you're doing is driving exponential value, you owe it to the people you could impact and the people you can help and the lives you can change to keep pushing and keep driving for the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Strive for greatness. One of the things that I aspired to, that I told you in our walk in Ottawa, going to take Liam to the playground, I aspired to get into the startup, not the startup space in the sense of being like a startup founder, but in the investing side of it, in the what's it called? It's like, that's not private
Angel
equity.
investing.
Angel investing. Yeah. And we were talking about, I was kind of shocked of our conversation when you said it. And then I remember I had heard it with through Naval and Dan about when you get into angel investing, there's no like secret formula of you knowing exactly which company is going to do perfectly. And it's almost like your bet is that 9 or 8 out of 10 are not going to do well, but the one is going to pay for the other 8 that went belly up. So what advice would you give to people that are looking to get into angel investing, and what have you learned in your years since you get into it?
Great question. I am learning a lot, painfully. I think that's my starting advice, is like nothing goes the way you think it's going to, and you can start earlier than you think. I do think that's one thing that a lot of people don't always realize, is they think you have to have kind of millions of dollars if you want to get into the angel ecosystem. I know a lot of angels that have started writing even kind of $1,000 to $5,000 checks in small rounds and small companies. So people can get into it earlier than they think they can. Organizations like AngelList are a great way to get exposed to it. That being said, I don't think it's a space people should get into until they have enough stability in their lives that they can afford to write off the check. If you're doing it and your immediate follow-up is going to be chasing every founder you've ever written a check to find out when you're getting your money back, you should not be in angel investing. It's a 10-year horizon on getting money out. It's not a fast thing, but it is one of the only investment vehicles in the world where your risk is fixed. You will only ever lose the amount of money you put into one company, and the upside is exponentially infinite. If you pick the right company, they go public, they go to the moon. If you got in when they were valued at $500,000, $1 million, $5 million, and they turn out to be $1 billion company, the return on your 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 can be life-changing. Wow. There aren't many places where you have fixed risk and infinite upside. Angel investing is one of them. It's how the venture capital world works. So I do think if you're if you have experience running a company, if you've got experience in the tech space, it's something to definitely explore. But I wouldn't do it until you're in a place financially where you can kind of comfortably and peacefully know that 60, 70, 80% of those investments aren't going to yield anything for you. I would love to say you get a higher hit rate. Stats just say that's kind of the way the portfolios shake out. And I mean, we're a few years into our journey in that space, and I don't have any kind of rocket ships to report on, but I think we've got a few companies that are pushing into the kind of 8 to 9 figure valuations, and we got in at the seed stage. So pretty happy with how that's gone so far.
What's seed stage?
Seed stage is usually the first round of investment that a company raises before they're in the market, whether it's kind of pre-seed, it's kind of just idea. It's a founder saying, hey, I want to go start a company. Seed stage is usually like, hey, we've started a company. We maybe have a little bit of traction, or we're maybe kind of along the way to building. And so valuations are a little bit lower. They're usually raising a little bit less money. Although the past number of years in the US, those numbers were kind of crazy when money was cheap. Now it's a little bit better. Those rounds are coming down a little bit and the valuations are coming down. But yeah, the other thing I would say is just follow people in that ecosystem. Angel communities can be an incredible wealth of knowledge to meet amazing people too. Like that's one of the other things that can be pretty interesting in that ecosystem is if you invest in a company and get to know who else is invested, what is their story? How did they end up in a situation where they're investing in companies? What are they interested in? What are they doing? Can be a pretty incredible way to build your network as you're scaling up as well.
I love it. I just checked the clock and time flew by, but I have two more quick questions. So
yes, sir.
I know you alluded about it. You alluded to it about knowing the why of why people are founding, why people are doing this. What's their why? Like Simon Sinek would say. But if you're looking into a company to angel invest, and the financials are sound, they have product market fit. Hopefully also product market founder fit. They don't want to kill each other. What other things do you look into that you're like, okay, this is actually my final green light? Because if it was just financials, it would be such an easy game to play. You just invest in companies that have, but it's clearly not just that. What else do you look into to know that this is a company that you want to invest in? Or is there nothing that helps people predict the future? I don't know. I'm trying to learn myself.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what's interesting is if you're getting in very early stage, the financials are rarely a great indicator of much beyond a sanity check because they don't usually have a ton of sales. The model can give you a bit of a sense of where the founding team thinks they should be prioritizing spend. If they've got a couple customers, it can give you a bit of a sense for what the revenue and unit economics might look like. A lot of the time for me, and I think we talked about this a little bit when we were chatting, is like I tend to like things in interesting niche markets that are underserved. Like we've invested in tools for like the pet industry. We're looking at a company right now that's dealing with a very kind of niche pain point in the real estate world, where you start it with one pain point, but it has the potential to solve in a lot of industries. I like that because you can get early traction with an underserved market as long as that market is big enough. Competition is another one to look at, is who else is doing what in this space. One thing that definitely makes me nervous and is kind of a red flag on opportunities is when either there's a claim that there is no competition or you can't find competition. Very rarely do you find yourself in a situation where you've stumbled upon the one oracle founder that has invented an industry that nobody else has figured out. Like, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist. I don't have access to that kind of deal flow. So if I see a situation where I can't find a competitor, I am immediately trying to figure out why. Like, what has the industry as a whole, or what have other service providers in that space figured out that either I haven't figured out yet, or that team hasn't figured out yet? And why is that? Why does it seem too obvious, too easy? Usually the best companies are a little bit counterintuitive because they're solving a problem in a way that people are like, that doesn't make sense, or it wouldn't work, or there's a barrier for this reason or that reason. And that's the big one to me. Founder chemistry, as you said, is also huge. Like, founder drama or founder fights or whatever. I mean, obviously, based on the last few days, this will date the show a little bit for filming, but like, you can have a multi-billion-dollar AI company, and a little bit of drama between the executive group can create insane instability in the world and all kinds of things. And that is true at early stage startups all the way up to massive organizations. So understanding the dynamics of how the team works together and what is their why the same. I've seen that a few times too, where you have 2 or 3 founders in a company, and the CEO or the person fundraising is very clear on their why and their direction. And you start talking to the other founders, and they're significantly less clear on their why or the direction. And that can sometimes be an indicator that they're not pulling in the same direction for the same reasons, which will become a problem when they hit adversity for the first time.
I see. Yeah, to me, this is a fascinating world that I know I will eventually get into, because I love it, and I can hear Tim Ferriss and Naval and you and Dan Martell talk about this, and I'm astounded when people are like, I wrote a $100,000 check to these people like 6 years ago, and I'm like, or like a week ago, and I'm like, what? $100,000 check like that? And then on the other hand, what you don't see though is that you can work your way up to cutting $1,000 checks. Maybe your investment doing 20 or 40x, I don't know, and that pays for the 8,000 that you lost because those companies didn't go well. Now you got 10 $4,000 checks, and that $4,000, if it does 40x, now it's 160,000, and you can play that game. But I mean, 10-year horizons. I don't know how many times you can play that game, but you can certainly play that game a couple times. So it's fascinating to me, and I don't know why I always have these like visualizations of me of like maybe in my 40s or 50s, just surrounded by these incredible people in these same rooms, going on vacation together, our kids playing together. And while I don't see myself as a SaaS or a software founder, there's many million other ways to bring value to that community.
There's so many other ways. And I think that's one of the big things. Like when you get closer to that world, like, definitely let's have more conversations about it, because like there's so many things you can bring to the table beyond a check. And I think a lot of early stage companies are sometimes looking for that, of rather than just the value of the check. Is it connections? Is it exposure? Is it I mean, this is why so many startups raise from big celebrity investors, because it's not because they're bringing a ton of tech savvy to the company. They're bringing a platform to help promote and launch a product. And I think on your path to taking over the comedy world, there's a very real future where exposure, reach, and community is something you can help bring to organizations you want to get involved in.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, my friend, you get the champagne question. The champagne question is the question that everybody gets at the end of the episode. It's my favorite question. And it goes like this. If we were to meet a year from now with a bottle of champagne, what are we celebrating in Graeme's life? at the end of 2024, what are we celebrating in a year?
I love it. We are celebrating crushing 8 figures in revenue, a successful year hiring and empowering in amazing people, and picking up some incredible coaching clients to work with along the way, and being able to work with some founders that are doing some high growth stuff. So I think that's what we're celebrating. And you selling out however many shows at the time. I think
Let's go.
Yeah.
Sell out. Selling out.
That's the big one.
Minimum two. Paradise Theaters. Everybody can buy the tickets to my comedy special at stephandyer.com and malpensando.com. But in the meantime, I just want to give a huge thank you to you for your time and your insights. I could do this for 10 hours straight, but we only, for commercial reasons, we don't want to have a 20-hour episode.
We don't need the marathon. I am happy I snuck on here before you restricted it down to comedians and I had to try and be funny. So I appreciate that.
Yes, no, conversations with you and Dan and people are like, well, if you do everything, you're not doing anything. So and doubling down on your niche and the things that you could do forever because they light you up. And also you network with all these amazing people. You'll become them in many ways. So I'm tripling down on this. I've already made significant changes, starting to see a lot of results. So I'm super happy for this conversation. Super grateful to you and your friendship hosting us at your place. And thank you so much for being here, man. It means a lot.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time. It's been awesome. If anyone wants to connect outside of this, hit me up at Graeme Barlow on any social media or graemebarlow.com. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to do this again soon.
Yes, we will. Thank you so much, my friend Graeme Barlow and Stephan Dyer on the Stephan Dyer Podcast. Ciao, ciao.
Gracias por escuchar el Stephan Dyer Podcast. Arrivederci, my people.